Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the movie Resident Evil Death Island. Ooh, yes, I got the 4K Steelbook edition kind of thing, because I'm like, I don't know how long it's going to take for any kind of streaming service or whatnot, and I want to support physical media as much as possible. And, interestingly enough, if I had seen this before My Hero Academia's third movie, I probably would have been harsher on this, but this was better than that movie and actually stayed kind of true to the characters, enough of it, and what's kind of going on, but there's still kind of issues with this. One of the most interesting kind of criticisms I have is that when we were going through, because this is like CGI computer animated, I had like Jill going around this house and everything, and I almost, since I was watching it on my Series X, I was almost picking up the controller and be like, ooh, I gotta play this part. And I'm like, oh damn, because the graphics are pretty good for most of what goes on. Though granted, at certain times with certain kind of choreography and how it goes kind of nuts, certain kind of characters move in ways that are a little bit unnatural, and the choreography doesn't really work out as much as I would like. So this actually kind of works as more of a continuation of what's kind of been going on in the games, and also within the CGI movie kind of things that they've been doing. So the plot actually, incidentally enough, sounds like they wanted to use Alcatraz Island as a kind of base for a bioweapon thing that was kind of going on, and they kind of worked backwards from there to kind of get everybody kind of roped into it, because we got Leon, Chris, Jill, Rebecca, cool enough, who doesn't really get enough attention, and Claire. So we actually start off back in Raccoon City. Two Umbrella officers, well, not officers, but two Umbrella grunts, Dylan and JJ, they're sent into Raccoon City. Things go nutty-doo-dah. Their team is pretty much infected. They've got orders from Umbrella to kill all of them, and then evac will be sent for them. JJ pretty much gets bit and leads to a tense standoff with him and Dylan, and then we cut into present day, which is 2015 in here. And we see that Leon pretty much goes after this Dr. Antonio Taylor because he is wanted for... He's like a DARPA researcher and is pretty much selling classified information to like foreign powers and stuff. So we get this weird kind of chase sequence where he's like going through, Huntington pretty much gives him the info. He's like, this thing's early. So we get a chase sequence kind of going on. He then has to fight this one weird chick who looks kind of similar to like how Jill was under Wesker's mind control. But the thing is that really kind of bothered me about this was how Leon was kind of... I don't mind him having to try and take down what's kind of going on. He was just firing kind of more indiscriminately than I thought Leon actually would at this point. But again, it was more like they were like, oh cool, let's have a chase sequence. It's like, alright. And he pretty much gets fucked up by the lady, and they kind of like go off. It's like, alright. We then switch over and we see that Jill is pretty much looking into one kind of thing. She has this kind of spooky kind of vibe, horror going through this house. Chris tells her to wait for backup, and she's like, nope, I'm doing this. And she kind of goes in, does her kind of tactical stuff, does encounter a zombie in there, and deals with it in her own way. And Chris is like, damn it. Hold on, like, things could have gone south. What the hell? And she's like, if somebody's life is in danger, I'm not going to just play by the rules. And we learn that that's kind of her hang-up for being under Wesker's mind control and everything. My biggest kind of... I like that this is kind of going on, but there's some problems here in that it is more of the remake Jill. So there's that kind of continuity weirdness for me. I don't mind it, but we would almost have needed the remake to get through 5 and 6 for this to be more like, oh, okay, we're going more of a kind of cohesive kind of way. It's just weird having remake Jill talk about this when last time I had remake Jill was in the RE3 remake. But we get her talking about this, Chris trying to get into her head because they go back. Rebecca's like, listen, she's still dealing with everything. She kind of blames herself for what was kind of going on. She's like, I was pretty much being told to kill you guys, and it messed with her. And we The dialogue, I'm glad that all of this story stuff from the games is being dealt with, because they sure shit ain't dealing with it in the games at this moment. Granted, if the remakes, because these stories have been going on for fucking ever, since the 90s, but we haven't really gotten any kind of movement much-wise on them in actual games for a while. Because Ethan and them was kind of like a detour of like Ethan in 7 and 8. I still had enjoyment out of those games, but it kind of detoured from actually dealing with those kind of fallouts and that stuff with the characters. Here, I'm glad we're dealing with it, but it's weird that it's in a movie, and it doesn't feel as naturally organic of what's kind of going on dialogue-wise. It's more like there, and then the characters are just saying stuff that we kind of feel that they kind of need to say. If that makes sense? And I don't put that down to the actors or whatnot. They're fine enough of what's going on. I put that more down to the content and the direction of what's kind of going on, because not much happens other than the plot of being like, somebody's doing evil shit on Alcatraz. Send in pretty much all these, send in Chris, Jill, Leon, Claire, deal with this kind of shit. It's like, alright, and then we just pretty much get the action and everything kind of going on, and then kind of a rushed kind of plot explanation of tying everything kind of together. It's a very strange beast. So they do try and do what they need, but its execution is very far from the mark, at least for me. Not enough for me to be like, this is the worst, most horrendous thing I've ever seen, but it's kind... The thing is, I've gotten used to it at this point that Capcom doesn't know what the fuck it's kind of doing with its properties. So, I think the main reason I'm not going thunder thumbs down on this is because it's not the worst Resident Evil thing that I've seen. Welcome to Raccoon City, motherfuckers. That for me. And if you like that, that's fine. I don't have any ill will towards you or anything. If you enjoyed it, fine. But that was like... This movie at least was not made almost to the point of like Opposite Day, where I would take any kind of reference, Jill and Wesker, and then Jill being controlled by Wesker, and then doing some kind of weird thing where she now has, I don't know, like just being like, hey, this is kind of fan servicey, but like doing the opposite of the fan service. Like, if you dumb down Jill completely enough that she was walking around with a literal fucking walk-through Palm Pilot doing certain shit, it just... And at least there was enough kind of parts of Jill actually going through and taking action and deciding stuff on her own in this movie to do things that I wouldn't be able to say that it's not Jill, if that makes sense. Ugh. So, she's dealing with that. Chris is kind of powwowing with her. Claire finds out that some bioorganisms are kind of fucking up with orcas, because this one dude she's working with TerraSave to go into this, and sharks don't usually fuck with orcas because orcas usually fuck with sharks. Like, okay, so that leads her to what's kind of going on there. Rebecca and the rest pretty much are figuring out that everything's kind of linked together at Alcatraz because the people are being infected, because they're going around in San Francisco and seeing that all these people are getting zombie turned, but the people they attack aren't turning into zombies. So it's like, this is a different kind of thing for the T-virus, and these people all had a thing in common where they went to Alcatraz. So we get them to go there, kind of check out what's going on, and then everything starts going to shit. People start turning into zombies willy-nilly and then not getting bitten, and everything is like, what's going on? So actually one of the smartest things for this movie is that kind of change-up, because that then reintroduces the horror kind of element of why are they turning and how is this happening? It's like, it's not being saliva, airborne, what the fuck's kind of going on here? And we also see that this dude is working with this other dude who's like doing all this kind of stuff, talking about this Iron Bull kind of thing, creators and everything, and the doctor, Antonio Taylor, is like, what the fuck? He kind of escapes. We see this dude's really into like utilizing the Russian roulette kind of stuff, but it's more like they understand that a character needs these kind of things, but don't put enough into it to actually get to the point that it feels like a solidified character, if that makes sense. Because this is Dylan. We learned that he had to kill JJ, and he did that, got out, and this is his plan for revenge and everything going on. And we learned that he is utilizing drones because that's what Anthony Taylor pretty much was into, robotic kind of drones and everything, and utilizing these to spread the T virus, and in such a way that those infected with the T virus aren't spreading it. It's like, that's a definite different kind of way of doing it. But we see that going through. The tourists that are there with them are essentially cannon fodder, and we get our requisite kind of crazy action sequences, which don't really do much for me. I've seen the better kind of action sequences for these characters in the games. So, if you have never seen or played Resident Evil, you'd probably get more mileage out of the action scenes, which is an interesting kind of thing. I have to talk about it like that because I'm invested in this series, and I'm a fan. Well, I'm a fan of this series, and I know these kind of things, so I have kind of a higher expectation or standard point with these kind of things. And if you're just coming at this willy-nilly out of nowhere, you might be like, okay, these work well enough for me, but since doing reviews, I'm like, there's better ways to do these action scenes. And it's just like, oh, okay, we see some definitely weird kind of ways of doing it, like Chris hanging off like a balcony, Claire trying to figure out how to like barricade a room and everything. Jill pretty much gets thunder thrown down into a sewer kind of system, and then links up because Leon's like, hey, your shit was with my shit, and they having to deal with the liquor sequence, which was interesting, but felt more like, hey, we want to use liquors, and then just like kind of threw them in there. So that was at least kind of better worked. Interesting seeing Jill and Leon work, where I haven't really seen them work much like that together, so that was a kind of cool kind of pairing. Though it gets to a certain kind of point where they kind of trade one-liners, if that makes sense. Not just here, but like throughout the whole film. They kind of like have certain kind of characters just say certain kind of things, which they don't. It's not like they're completely out of the realm of what the characters would say, but it's just like, oh, okay, you're like, your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn, where it doesn't feel as organic dialogue-wise or as natural of what's kind of going on. So they pretty much fuck around, find the dude's stuff. We find that Claire and Chris get infected. The Antonio dude was acting like, oh, terror saves a cult. It's like, what? Even playing through stuff with like certain kind of terror save, I'm not that much familiar with that kind of lore. I'm like, you being a, what the, what? She's not really acting like that, but of course they had to deal with some zombies, and she's like, I'd help you even if you were the bad guy. And it's like the biggest kind of tell of like, there's nobody else alive, nobody else has really been saying any kind of much. He has to be the doctor dude that escaped and everything like that. It's like, yeah, he's one of the bad guys. And there's no, it's like, unless there's an invisible motherfucker right over here, which they could have brought in certain kind of things that have become invisible and had to deal with certain kind of things. I mean, Jill had like an invisible cloak thing in 5 that she ran around and did with, I thought. I might be misremembering that kind of stuff. It's been a little bit. But that kind of tech for organisms has also been utilized as well, so it's not out of the realm of possibility, but we don't see that in here. So everything kind of coalesces. Maria? And we see that Rebecca has been also working on a vaccine, which actually isn't the kind of correct term to this kind of T-virus because it's so similar. So she's actually doing stuff in the background. Well, but I do have a kind of problem as they kind of go through, let's see. Maria Gomez is working with the Dylan dude. So then we get Dylan pretty much monologuing and be like, oh, here's all this stuff for all these characters, which going through Jill's, Chris's, Leon's, Claire's kind of stuff as they're pretty much dying, expounding he believes that there's no justice in the world, that he's going to take on all this kind of stuff. I'm like, you have me until you start trying to go and essentially become those guys and utilize the T-virus to like destroy the world and do it in your own kind of way. It's like, oh, fuck you. But then Jill pretty much is able to escape. They shoot the Antonio dude. Claire tries to demonstrate to him, and she's like, I gotta try and do what I can do. I can't really help myself at the moment, but I can help you. And he's like, all right, you're good. And gives her pretty much the thing to control the drones. And we see that Chris and Leon are like, yeah, we're fine. We have belief because we have Jill out there. And like, damn, that kind of shit's on Rebecca because she's the one coming, doing the kind of shit to kind of like help your asses. I'm like, I'm not trying to knock Jill, but everybody fucking forgets Rebecca. Even when she comes in and essentially saves most of the day for everything kind of going on. It's like, I'm glad that they give her something to fucking do with the vaccine. And then later on, when we deal with the whole drones and the control code that Antonio had given Claire, it's just like, I'm glad that they got faith in Jill, but I'm like, Rebecca? Anybody else? Barry? Sheva? Everybody? Like, granted, I know that they're their core, but I'm just like, god damn, it just feels like they shit on Rebecca, but she's able to get around. Rebecca gets in, her cannon fodder people get eaten. So she encounters Rebecca, leads her off there, and then they all kind of coalesce together. Dylan's like, I'm going to infect myself with this, and then fuse with the shark bioweapon, and we get the... So they pretty much task Rebecca and Claire with, which makes sense because they would be more of the support tech kind of roles. Not that they can't fight or anything, but Chris, Leon, and Jill have the most kind of combat experience, while they usually can deal with this stuff in the background as they pretty much get control of the drones, use it to infect and weaken the fuckity-doo-dah thing. We get Jill utilizing the fucking plasma rifle kind of thing, which essentially just leaves her hooked up to a fucking generator battery as it fucking charges. It's like, oh my god. It's like they were like, hey, she's the remake Jill. Let's give her this thing that she kind of utilized against Nemi. I'm just like, alright, we got this armory that they've got all this kind of stuff for. I'm like, well, do you really need most of this? I mean, granted, for certain kind of cleanup operations with the bioweapons that you're using the liquor drone things for, sure, but we see nobody else here. Doctor, Maria, and Fucknut. Dylan. Like, I don't see any kind of organization. Oh yeah, and Leon has a kind of fight scene with the Maria chick and then, like, kicks her into a thing and she dies. It's not really a good fight scene. There's certain kind of things that are done well enough, but it really doesn't showcase Leon's character very well, or Maria's character. I'm not really that familiar with her character, and there's like fuck all nothing that they do with her, so it's like, alright. Like, she's not really given many lines, and she's not really given much personality other than the look of what she's got. And I'm like, alright. Fight. You guys are responsible for Dad's death. And that's fine, but you need to do more with that than just, like, have it hang there. A lot of this movie just puts stuff there. Phone. And then really doesn't do much with it. It's just like there. It's like, yes, it's a phone. Should I fucking care about this thing? It's got incriminating evidence of a chicken that can open cosmic wormholes by cock-a-doodle-dooing through its own asshole. Well, that makes that phone a little bit more interesting because I want to see that fucking shit on it. Here, it's just like, she blames you for her father's death. I'm like, alright. I don't see her really angry or making rash decisions or immediately doing anything that really makes me fear for the characters' lives that I'm watching. It's... No, granted, these characters have been fighting bioorganisms for like 18 decades at this point. So you gotta kind of work to be like, I'm in danger, motherfucker. It's like radioactive potato. It's like, whatever. It's like mutant shark. We kind of dealt with that. But we see them kind of working through it, just kind of like running around doing weird shit, utilizing certain weapons. Jill utilizing the like plasma rifle. For some reason, like, the Dylan monstrosity was trying to escape. It's kind of weakened, and it was trying to make it for the door that would lead out to pretty much the ocean. and Chris and Leon have to use this rocket launcher that takes both of them to, like, fuck with. I'm just like, alright. She also utilizes a grenade and they pretty much, like, blast it, but they don't blast the fucker with the rocket launcher. Which, I think, out of any kind of fan servicey thing you're trying to do with Resident Evil, blowing up the bioweapon at the end with a rocket launcher is the gimme. That's like, freebie, bingo, motherfucker. I got that space, bitch. Let's blow it up. No, we're gonna blow out the door and toss a grenade in its face and then kind of chop its head off with the giant door. I'm like, really? You couldn't have made some, like, super big-ass fucking explodey thing? Like, that's one of the, like, action-y horror tropes that this series fucking, like, bread and butters this thing for. I'm like, you didn't do that? Making your choices, alright. But it never got into the realm where I was, like, actively, like, welcome to Raccoon City. So they, like, do that, they get through their day. Chris is like, alright, good job, Jill. You're doing better. It's like, alright, she didn't really deal with any shit. She just went through another fucking horrendous, traumatic fucking thing that you guys all go through. I almost need somebody to pop up and be like, you guys do this every fucking day. You need help. You need to deal with this shit. I mean, granted, good job on your teamwork and everything, but holy fucking shit, this shouldn't be fucking normal. It's just like, you're not dealing with the shit that you're dealing with, and I'm like, how are you trying to say that she, like, worked through her shit with Wesker? Like, I would have understood if they tried to play her off more as, like, a loose cannon because of everything going on, but that's all they did. They just said that she was being irresponsible and reckless without actually really dealing with it. And that kind of irks me with certain kind of things where you kind of do, like, at least lay a foundation / potential for something like that, and then really don't do anything with it. So that's where I'm like, no. That's something that needs to be dealt with. Because then we just go into the same, hey, we got to deal with another bioweapon event. Alright. So, would I recommend this? If you're bored, sure. I mean, I've watched worse movies than this, but I've also seen better movies than this. It's 91 minutes, so it's not the worst kind of thing possible. It did have moments of where I'm like, oh, I'm playing a game. But it deals with the same kind of Capcom shit that you have been dealing with as a Resident Evil fan for most of Resident Evil. So that's, I guess, why it's almost like that's become their standard now. Like, you get to a point where you're trying to point out problems and everything and hope that certain things get fixed, or that a certain creative team gets popped in and is able to do some really awesome, crazy-ass thing, and you just learn that, A, that's their operating standard. It's not truly acceptable, but this is what you kind of understand is happening now. So, it's hard to recommend it, but I'm not going to actively say it's like the worst thing I've ever watched and to tell you to not watch it, if that makes sense. They do deal with certain kinds of things that I wish would be dealt with in the games, which I'm like, granted, it's the kind of lowest kind of bar being like, wah! And it's like, ah! If that makes any sense. I've had other things where I've felt more of a waste of a time, but at least I'm like, okay, they're understanding that these plot threads actually have to be fucking dealt with, so maybe as the remakes keep coming through and everything, we kind of get more of a unified, cohesive story. Now, that would mainly work out and go through of trying to drastically change up 6 to kind of fix that, and then jumping forward enough and actually making a game. Like, no, that would be a tall order to eat. That would even be even worse than 6. I would need 2, maybe 3 game kind of trilogy to kind of close out our people in this. Chris, Leon, Jill, Claire, Rebecca, Barry. All of those main ones, and doing a good enough story to kind of do that, and then launching us more in the future with kind of Rose or whatnot, and a vastly kind of changed world where maybe people all have kind of bioweapon kind of capabilities or whatnot, and how that kind of changes the world. Now, granted, that also changes the feel of the series, but that's kind of their escalation problem that they've got with all this kind of thing going on. Otherwise, they have to keep going in the same kind of circle of corporation comes up, bio event, boom, corporation goes down. Oh, bioweapon event, boom, blah, 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 and how to kind of working within that cycle. I don't know. I guess the thing is, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It's weird. So yeah, I would recommend it for at least a little bit of the character stuff going on for it and a little bit of the plot stuff. But mostly the plot in this is just the bare bones kind of stuff. Action-wise, there's better action stuff, so I can't really even recommend it on that if you're just into action. Graphics and art direction-wise, sure, if you're into it and you're like, I want to see how these liquors look, how the final boss kind of looks, but those are the main kind of creature designs that you're going to get. You don't really see much of the shark bioweapon to have that even write home about. So those are pretty much the main things if you're trying to look for them to like kind of get anything for. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.